federal government approves establishment of National Council on Hydrocarbons.
Senate rejects bill seeking special grants for Lagos as House of Reps urges governments at all levels to improve on teachers' welfare.
Over 50 communities in Niger State displaced by flood.
And today on Good Morning Nigeria, we focus on the Federal Integrated Staff Housing Program, also known as FISH.
Top in the basic needs of man after food is shelter, because it is the desire of every human being to be safe and secured. But the dream of owning houses has eluded many Nigerians, and with the country currently having a housing deficit of over 10 million has been pegged.
Well, those who are mostly affected are also civil servants, a great number of whom live in slums and unplanned settlements. And this is because of their inability to own a house or rent decent accommodation in the city. Accommodation has become a challenge for civil servants, particularly federal civil servants in the capital city, as they could not benefit from the monetization policy that took place some 10 years or so ago, and therefore have to look for other ways of getting their own accommodation.
Well, quite right. So several initiatives to actually solve the housing needs of civil servants have not yielded the desired result, as many developers in a bid to profit solution ended up building houses that are beyond the reach of the same workers. Well, similarly, the federal government housing loans board put in place have not been able to live up to its expectation due to poor funding.
All right, but in a bid to address the nagging issues of housing challenge, especially for federal civil servants, the Federal Integrated Staff Housing, that's FISH program, was initiated recently by the Office of the Head of Service of the Federation, and it is to provide a cost-effective as well as affordable housing for various categories of workers as a means to uplift their commitment, stewardship, and quality of life during and after service.
Well, for civil servants in the state also to benefit in this program, that's the FISH program, as the initiator or head of service of the Federation, Winifred Oyo Ita, has started soliciting the support of state government for its success.
Well, state governments are required to provide land for the development of affordable housing for federal civil servants, while between 10 and 15% of the housing scheme will be made available for civil servants in the donating state. That is the state that provides the land. Now, these civil servants will also benefit, as that will be the state's equity contribution to the scheme. The Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria and other international agencies that can grant single-digit loans to estate developers to develop the scheme are also involved.
Well, this FISH program, that is it's in line with the desire of the Buhari's administration to actually provide about 180,000 cost-effective and affordable housing for various categories of workers in the federal civil service by 2019. Well, at the groundbreaking ceremony of the Federal Civil Servants Housing Estate in Abuja, President Buhari said the Federal Integrated Staff Housing, also known as FISH program, apart from addressing welfare concerns of civil servants, will also attempt to contribute in no small measure to the development of national economies through the generation of employment in the building and allied industries.
Well, the question, fairly obvious, that many may wish to ask at this time, especially civil servants, is who are the categories of beneficiaries of the housing scheme? And then what are also the components of the housing program, and how will it be funded in a way that will make it affordable? Of course, these are some of the talking points of the program that will be taken on in our discussion segment later today. My name is Kingsley Osadolo, and I welcome you to today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria.
And I am Blessing Abu. I join Kingsley in welcoming you to the program today. It promises to be very revealing, and we ask you to join in the discussion as usual. Of course, during that time, you find our Twitter handle at NTAGMN displayed on the screen. While this program is coming to you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, It's Africa's largest television network. We take pride in that. And in the course of the program, we'll bring to you our other companion segments, which by now include newspaper review, business reports, sports, foreign, as well as entertainment news. But right now, let's begin with the morning news, and here is Lydia Bassey. Good morning, Lydia.
Thank you, Blessing and Kingsley. Good morning and welcome to the news. The federal government has approved the establishment of the National Council on Hydrocarbons as a strategic measure towards finding lasting solutions to the socio-economic and security challenges in the oil-rich Niger Delta region. The Minister of State for Petroleum, Dr. Emmanuel Ibe Kachiku, announced this while briefing newsmen after the Federal Executive Council meeting presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari. He said the council is to serve as ombudsman that meets in extraordinary times to review policies and actions of government towards achieving stability in the nation's petroleum industry.
It should be a gathering of people from the business sector, people from the oil sector, people from the communities where oil is produced, ministries that are directly or indirectly affected by some of the policies that we roll out in the Ministry of Petroleum. The criticality of that is that as we continue the dialogue that we've been having and preparing for a much more intensive dialogue with militants, creating such a forum enables everybody who has an interest, one way or the other, to converge and to help develop a thinking process that will guide policies in this sector.
The trial of the Senate President Abubakar Bukola Saraki over alleged false declaration of assets has resumed at the Code of Conduct Tribunal. Aliu Toko reports that the trial, however, faced yet another setback as the tribunal turned down an application by the defense for the chairman to disqualify himself from presiding. In the Senate, a bill for an act to make provisions for federal grants to Lagos State suffered a major setback. The bill, sponsored by Senator Remi Tinubu, caused a mild stir on the floor of the Senate.
Available statistics indicate that 6 out of 10 international passengers arrive in Lagos, while 8 out of 10 depart from Lagos. This shows that Lagos is the window through which visitors traveling in and out of Nigeria view the country.
If we go and approve bills like this, there are very despondent states, like Enugu State, Zamfara State, all these states with historical antecedents like the Zungeru and all the rest. They will be asking for special assistance from federal government.
Until we have fiscal federalism, Lagos will not work. Until we have fiscal federalism, Calabar will not work. Until we have fiscal federalism, the FCT will not work. By the way, the FCT is a rotting, pampered child. Please settle down.
In commemoration of World Teachers' Day, members of the House of Representatives have urged governments at all levels to improve on teachers' welfare.
Is so decayed and dilapidated.
When the award trend, they will go out to deliver. The quality of teachers we have in this country today has also gone down.
To properly fund teaching and educational infrastructure.
Still on World Teachers' Day, if the world must achieve primary education by 2030, there's a need to fill the teacher gap of 68 million at the primary and secondary levels. This formed part of the issues at the 2016 World Teachers' Day celebration in Abuja with the theme, Valuing Teachers, Improving on Their Status.
Free, which are of quality, and we know the standard of teaching then, and we know the position of teachers then. I think reverse is now the case.
How do we explain states where teachers are paid only in percentages? How do you describe a situation whereby teachers work materially for 35 years, only for him to be denied his gratuity, his emolument and entitlement at the end of the day?
The Nigerian Air Force has been presented a patent rights certificate by the National Office for Technology Acquisition and Promotion, NOTAP, for locally manufacturing hydraulic diaphragm for its combat helicopters. Defense correspondent Isaac Nkuma reports that this innovation will save the Nigerian Air Force over $36,000. Moving on now, the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants and Internally Displaced Persons wants the international community and public-spirited individuals to support all efforts geared towards creating a conducive environment for the IDPs to return home and stay safe. The Federal Commissioner Sadia Umar Farouk made the appeal in Abuja while introducing a program for the internally displaced persons, Operation Back Home, OBH.
Only subjected to undue hunger, homelessness, but dehumanized. We must put all hands on deck to provide them food, shelter, and hope for better life.
Still on IDPs, the federal government has provided foodstuffs to Borno State government for the upkeep of thousands of internally displaced persons spread across several camps in Maiduguri.
That are outside Maiduguri, but that one we don't follow it with the MOC procedure, but we also synergize with His Excellency Director.
And from Niger State, over 50 communities in Edati and Mokwa local government areas of Niger State have been displaced by flood. There are fears that in the coming days, more communities may be affected as the water level continues to rise. Hamis Urogo reports that there are also fears of farm harvest being lost.
We experience flooding, serious flooding. So at that time, there's nothing we can do, because we've already passed the information to our locals and they've already set into the farms. So you can see where we are.
This year we're already at the month of October. So nobody envisaged that whether there will be a flood. And it happened now. And you know, because of the large populace that's living across the river area, some of this issue is beyond the state. All one state could do is to give the people relief materials.
That's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Blessing and Kingsley after this break.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Whenever pain occurs, you want quick relief. Try new Nurofen Express. It goes to the source of pain and gets to work in under 15 minutes. That's why Nurofen Express delivers fast and effective relief. New Nurofen Express works at the source of pain. Fast.
Being a mom is great, but when your child has a fever, you don't know what to do. I trust Nurofen for Children to take care of my child's pain and fever.
Effective relief you can trust.
Introducing new Dettol multi-surface cleaner for a healthy home. Some cleaners don't kill germs, others kill germs but don't clean properly. New Dettol multi-surface cleaner gives you 10 times better germ kill, 10 times better cleaning, and all-day freshness for a healthy home.
Germs, oil and dirt cause blemishes and uneven skin tone. You need Dettol Even Tone. It removes 99.9% of germs and is formulated to remove excess oil and dirt, helping to reduce blemishes. New Dettol Even Tone.
The NTA ETV National Children's Expo for Scientific, Technological and Artistic Inventions is in its 10th edition. We are set to make history again, live at the NTA Headquarters Arena, Area 11, Garki, Abuja, with the theme Improved Technology and Impetus for Mechanized Agriculture, Renewable Energy and Economic Development of the Nation. Date, Sunday, October 23rd to Thursday, October 27, 2016, 9 a.m. each day. As usual, this event is open only to junior categories of ages 6 to 12 years and senior categories of 13 to 18 years in both arts, science or technology. Participants must be in the school system. Are you ready to be a part of the biggest gathering of Nigerian children with creative and innovative ideas? Note, all NTA stations nationwide are implored to complete their preliminary competitions ahead of the Abuja event in October.
You're welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, we understand that bad loans have risen sharply in Nigerian banks, just as the World Bank has urged governments to invest in human capital to boost economic growth. Our correspondent, Joy Uzo, has details of these stories in our business package.
Bad loans in Nigeria's banking system soared to more than double the limit set by the regulator as the industry struggles with an economic downturn. The ratio of non-performing loans to total credit rose 4.4% from 5.3% at the end of June to 11.7% at the end of 2015. The Central Bank of Nigeria, which requires banks to keep the measure below 5%, disclosed this recently in Abuja. He further reviewed that credit risk is expected to trend higher into the second half of 2016 owing to increased loan impairments resulting from the depreciation of the Naira. Meanwhile, CBN's Deputy Governor Economic Policy, Dr. Sarah Alade, says oil and gas exposures constitute about 40% of the bank's loan portfolio. The banker who disclosed this during a media parley with newsmen pointed out that only about 50% of the 40% mentioned above was to the upstream sector, where the greatest risk currently resides. She explained that the loans were booked when the price of oil was $140 per barrel. Now that oil has fallen to about $40 per barrel, the players are finding it difficult to meet repayment obligations. Consequently, most of the facilities have been restructured. The former Acting Director General Standards Organization of Nigeria's son, Dr. Paul Anya, has said the campaign against substandard tires will continue through the ember months. He disclosed this during the handing over ceremony to the Substantive Director General, Mr. Osita Abloma, in Abuja. He said apart from the campaign against substandard tires, the building sector has been a source of concern to some, and the organization is taking a serious look into the incidents of building collapse. Responding, the Director General Osita Abloma sought the full cooperation of all the workers of the organization, assuring that work will be a continuous activity as no idea will be ignored. He said the influx of substandard goods into the country from different parts of the world is a disaster and should be stopped, adding that some workers must be proactive. Finally, on business news, the World Bank Group President Jim Yong Kim has outlined 3 fundamental pillars that will drive momentum towards achieving the organization's goals of ending extreme poverty by 2030 and boosting shared prosperity. He says the goals will be achieved in 3 ways, namely accelerating inclusive and sustainable economic growth, investing in human capital, and lastly, fostering resilience to global shocks and threats. Speaking at the Brookings Institution on the eve of the World Bank and IMF annual meetings, Kim pointed out to a new World Bank report that lays out how income inequality between all people in the world has decreased and inequality within nations has been falling in many countries, both rich and poor. But inequality is still far too high, both globally and within countries. This, he noted, constrains growth and breeds instability. Kim said this means that not only do they need to focus on growth, but the effort to reduce inequality to create room to make growth more equitable must be intensified. With Business News, I am Joy Uzo.
Thank you very much, Joy Uzo, there with a business package. Up next is our newspaper review segment.
right, Bayo Toyobe, our reviewer, is here with us as usual this morning. Bayo, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Jesse, and good morning, Nigeria.
All right, let's begin our review this morning with this day newspaper, starting from the top to the bottom, because we have a variety of stories: economy, politics, and judiciary. Now, the story, the headline above the nameplate, two headlines there. The first one says, FJSC. FJSC stands for the Federal Judicial Service Commission, recommends Justice Onoge for appointment as CJN. CJN stands for Chief Justice of Nigeria. And below that, IMF, that's the kicker, Nigeria's economic challenges pose risk to other West African countries. Details of that story on page 9. Now, below the nameplate, you have the headline, again, CCT, that's Code of Conduct Tribunal Chairman, refuses Saraki's application to withdraw from case. And a rider, Dasuki, that's another case. Federal government says it needs time to study ECOWAS ruling and agrees to consolidate charges against ex-NSA. Now, the lead story that's lower to the lower half of the front page of this day, Kachuku, that's the Minister of State for Petroleum, Nigeria will soon close $4 billion investment deal with China. And two riders, budget constraint hampering road construction, says Fashola. And federal government approves 3.5 billion naira for prisons to buy 350 vehicles. Now, those are the headlines from, we are taking in the meantime from this day newspaper.
Okay, I'll start off with the Vanguard. And the leading for the Vanguard this morning, recession, 1.7 trillion naira bad loans threatening banks. This is a statement from the Central Bank of Nigeria with three riders. Non-performing loans grew by 158% in 6 months. Banks' capacity to withstand harsh economy threatened. That is how the CBN puts it. And assures financial system will adapt to macroeconomic shocks. Still on the front page of the Vanguard, we have just above the masthead, while federal government hasn't released Dasuki despite ECOWAS court order. You find that story on page 8. United Kingdom to help recover diverted 500 billion naira oil block. That is just on the left-hand corner of the paper, just beside the photograph there. You have Saraki at CCT, Senate President Dr. Bukola Saraki at the Code of Conduct Tribunal over his trial for alleged false asset declaration in Abuja yesterday. That's the photograph you have there. World Teachers Day. Reps demand better welfare package for teachers. You find that story on page 39. Quickly now to the nation. I have several stories there, but okay, still looking at the ABC of the World Teachers Day. Of course, if you are ever taught by someone, which I believe you were, then you should celebrate the teacher. Reps reopen $1.1 billion Malabu oil deal probe. EFCC to declare ex-minister wanted. Some couple of stories just above. We have kidnapped ex-minister's husband regained freedom. You find that story on page 4. Court refuses to stop Odua's trial for corruption. You find that story on page 8. And page 6 will let you into this story about the Federal Executive Council approving 4.5 billion naira for transformers, prisons, and prison vehicles. How I disbursed 680.2 million naira by Shema's ex-ADC. Then to page 4, again, you find a story on the court's decision on El Zakzaki. Court to decide El Zakzaki's fate, November 25. Anyway, Bayo, let's let you come in here.
Yes. Let's start with the judiciary. The Federal Judicial Service Commission actually recommended 3 justices of the Supreme Court to accede to the position of the Chief Justice of Nigeria. These 3 recommendations is going to the National Judicial Council, and they will in turn screen the 3, and the practice is they will recommend 2 to Mr. President. Normally, Mr. President accedes to the recommendation that the most senior gets to accede to the position of Chief Justice of Nigeria. Mr. President, in turn, having selected one, will also recommend to the Senate for approval. Presently, Justice Samuel Nkanu Onoge is the most senior. He came to the Supreme Court in 2010. Also, in the judiciary, the Code of Conduct Tribunal has turned down the application for the tribunal chairman to disqualify himself. According to the 2-man panel chairman, they dismissed the application because it was an abuse of judicial process. The applicant had imputed bias in the threat by the chairman that the accused will face the consequences of charges no matter the delay tactics. The statement the defense lawyer said had eroded their confidence in the chairman. The prosecution lawyer also sought a dismissal of the application. The chairman ruled that similar application was dismissed in April 28, and whatever comments were made were without prejudice to the trial. The trial is to continue on November 7th.
All right. Bayo, let's go over to the Nigerian pilot and take some headlines from there. But before we go over to Nigerian pilot, there's a story on the inside pages of this day. You might not be able to see that on your screen right away. The story is on page 9. And it says, Risco Foods threatens to shut down operations and may sack 1,500 workers. That's on page 9 of this day newspaper. Now, return to the Nigerian pilot, the front page of Nigerian pilot. Below the nameplate, we have the following headlines. Edo governorship results. Izeyamo to lead street protests against INEC. Details of that on page 9. And World Teachers Day. Senate reps, governors, and others eulogize teachers. Fayose donates 15 million naira to Ekiti NUT. We don't owe them. That's according to Wike, Rivers governor. But the lead story, it's also the economy. It says Nigeria's economic challenges hurting neighbors. This is attributed to the IMF. We read that headline earlier also from this day newspaper. But there is a write-up to that Nigeria has dropped in 2016 ease of doing business ranking.
Well, from election, and there's a cartoon on the recession, whatever is causing to some people right now. But back to the front page of the Vanguard, I'll start off with that of the election. 2015 polls cost Nigeria 108.8 billion naira. This is a statement credited to INEC. Find that story on page 12. Well, closing on that cartoon there, you have, honey, Mr. and Mrs. now. The recession fever has taken another dimension. I just passed by the family planning center and the place was jam-packed. Well, people were advised to go for this exercise when the economy was good. Now they are doing panic family planning.
That's right.
Budget.
Well, let's take the story on the economy. Kingsley read that Nigeria's neighbors are crying because of the economic crunch. You recall that President Yahya Jammeh it was who said that when Nigeria sneezes, the rest of the catch cold. Now, Nigeria is an economic terrorist, and therefore the consequences are affecting the neighbors. Meanwhile, there is another lamentation, this time from the Minister of Finance, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun. She said Nigeria is blessed with coal. Nigeria has power problem, but it will make sense to build coal power plant. Nigeria is being blocked by Western powers because it is not green. This is the lamentation of the minister. She was at the infrastructural gas conference of the IMF in New York. She says this is not fair because Western industrialization was built on coal-fired energy. She suggests that we use solar and wind, but these are very expensive. The field is not level. Similarly, on the economy side too, the Minister of State for Petroleum, Ibe Kachiku, says that Chinese private sector have proposed to invest about 70 billion in Nigeria, and already a 40-man business delegation from China is expected in Nigeria anytime this month. And from that, a business transaction worth $4 billion are almost available in investment packages. Nigeria is second only to Russia in gas flaring, and the minister also sought permission to host an international flare conference meeting in November-December.
It's something I want to draw attention to. For the nation, there's a photograph there for aviation workers protesting the airport concessioning. I said, no way. Aviation workers protesting the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, FAN, in Lagos against a planned concession of the 4 major airports yesterday. There you have the photograph in there. And the boldest headline for the nation, Lagos special grants bill sparked hot Senate debate. We also saw that in our news earlier. With the rider, Senator Tinubu mounts spirited arguments. Bayo. Okay, Kingsley,
well, I just, when Bayo was talking about the story concerning the Minister of Finance, we have had the opportunity of discussing coal to power projects that have been cited in Nigeria. Is there a rollback on those projects now? That's one question. Second question is, do we sometimes have a deeper understanding of some of these protocols and conventions that we're often quick to ratify, whether on climate change, or carbon credit, and so on and so forth. Sometimes we rush into these things without knowing the impact. And the Chinese, of course, have resisted the rest of the world in these areas. But let me just take a couple of headlines from the front page of Daily Trust. Daily Trust, below the nameplate, says, Sheriff absent as PDP caucus OK's peace initiative. Details of that story on page 6. And then at the foot of Daily Trust, we have that fury as Mugabe's son-in-law gets top job. That's on page 40. And just before we go, there's a sign language from page 36 of Daily Trust. It's inside there. I'm sure we can see that on the screen. Page 36 of Daily Trust, we can see that. It says, please, if we can see that on the screen right away. If we can see that on the screen right away, the director is listening to what I'm saying. That's right. Just take it up a bit, sign language. Please drive up. Let's go up a bit. One more time. All right. That's from somewhere urban in California. Please slow drively.
Talking about slow drively, are you a motorist? When was the last time you run red lights? Well, if you do so now in Abuja, you will be arrested, taken to the hospital, and subjected to psychiatric test. The Minister for FCC, Mohammed Musa Bello, has directed the FCT Police Command to position speed bikes at various traffic intersections to enforce arrest of those who beat traffic light. Not only that, FCT Health Services is to make sure that ambulances are available at traffic intersections to convey motorists arrested for violating traffic lights. And furthermore, if you are unfortunate and you are arrested, the bill at the hospital and administrative cost will be borne by you. If you are certified all right, then the culprit should be prosecuted. The minister did not say if you are certified to have psychiatric problems.
Well, I'm sure I can tell them the different spots to actually catch some of these people doing it. Anyway, Bayo, thank you very much for coming on the review again today.
Those lights have to be functional as well. We
that's
have
another thing.
In area 11 here by the central bank, the lights are not working, and elsewhere in the city, traffic lights are not working.
Seriously, violating traffic lights is very serious, especially Fridays, Saturday. Friday evening, Saturday evening. Numerous accidents in Abuja is from such things.
Thank you very much. We'll see you again tomorrow.
So,
this is Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a break now, and then we'll return to be time to start our conversation looking at the Federal Integrated Staff Housing Program, otherwise known as FISH, amongst other things, with our guest this morning.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects, and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Whenever pain occurs, you want quick relief. Try new Nurofen Express. It goes to the source of pain and gets to work in under 15 minutes. That's why Nurofen Express delivers fast and effective relief. New Nurofen Express works at the source of pain. Fast.
Being a mom is great, but when your child has a fever, you don't know what to do. I trust Nurofen for Children to take care of my child's pain and fever.
Effective relief you can trust.
Does your antiseptic liquid kill the germs that cause flu, diarrhea, typhoid? Dettol does. Dettol provides 10 times more protection versus leading competition. So why take a risk with your loved ones?
Dettol Mom. She only trusts Dettol antiseptic liquid to kill 100 illness-causing germs, and it's recommended for cuts and scrapes. Worry less and love more. Don't just be any mom, be a Dettol mom. Dettol, be 100% sure.
Why don't you people sell imported materials here? As beautiful as the shop is.
Auntie. Buying foreign goods does not help our economy. Neither does it boost local production. And the good thing is Nigerian-made products are high quality. Really? And to make Nigeria great again. That is why I only sell made in Nigeria products. Because change begins with me.
I'm convinced. Change begins with me too! Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, as we indicated earlier in the course of the program, today our discussion segment focuses on FISH. And what is FISH? Is a federal integrated housing program, of course, for civil servants and state governments, and their servants will also be able to benefit from it on the percentage allocation basis. But before that, of course, we have a background report by our correspondent Amotola Omojola, who tells us about the federal civil service, civil servants, their role in the system, and what has become of them in terms of their welfare, particularly with regard to accommodation.
The deterioration of the working conditions in the civil service, which is characterized by late or non-payment of pensions, among other things, and the increase in the employment rate into the service, affected allocation of accommodation to workers as it became inadequate to cater for the population. At the return of democracy in 1999, former President Olusegun Obasanjo, with an understanding of the decay of maintenance of government properties and the huge cost, embarked on the monetization policy, which converted most official benefits to financial worth and sold the properties. He also provided the owner-occupier opportunity for civil servants to buy their allocated government apartments. Consequently, those who could not afford to pay for theirs moved to places much farther away from their workplaces, eating deep into their earnings and also creating downtime in work efficiency due to travel time to workplaces. Nothing short of what analysts call lip service best describe the various interventions put in place to provide housing for civil servants. Mortgage institutions do less with outrageous terms given to workers compared to their salaries. 2.5% deduction is made monthly from the salaries of civil servants by the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, with hope of someday accessing funds for mortgage. That, from testimonials of workers, have proven to be an uphill task. Different union bodies have come up with housing schemes, while some have brought succor to benefiting workers who are very few. Others have proven to be fraudulent. Hope may, however, be renewed with the proposed 180,000 housing units for various categories of workers under the Federal Integrated Staff Housing. What is the modus operandi? How feasible is it? And when will this commence? Join us as we take a look at these and other challenges of government workers in Nigeria.
All right, Motola Mojola, thank you very much there for that background report on the accommodation for civil servants. But of course, before we get into the discussion segment proper, we of course will be taking a look at other matters pertaining to quality service delivery by federal civil servants. So we are being joined at this time by Mrs. Winifred Oyoita, head of the civil service of the Federation. Mrs. Oyoita, a pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Welcome you, Head of Civil Service, and we appreciate your time here, really. Now, at one point, from what background I actually indicated, it was at a point in this nation to have workforce in the civil service, prestigious, but what do you make of the civil service today as you found it and being headed by you?
Well, you have to understand that the civil service is operating in a larger environment, Nigeria. And just as Nigeria has gone through so many challenges and is facing so many issues, it affects the civil service and the civil servants. You cannot separate civil service from the Nigerian environment. And so the civil service has been affected, yes, negatively, and unfortunately, because the civil service is the engine room of government implementation of all government's policies and programs, and actually designs these programs for government. Everybody has to say that, okay, it's the civil service that has gone wrong, that is faulty. But we cannot continue living in those times. There must be a way forward. And that is why I have developed a new ethos for the service under the acronym EPIC: efficiency, productivity, incorruptibility, and citizen-centeredness. We want to now develop a civil servant that has these qualities. And this is being anchored on 4 pillars which I've developed, and I will tell you more about that.
You know, straight away, I mean, you can go into the details of the 4 pillars, and then to also explain whether this has become something akin to what we find in governments, whether at the local, state, or federal level. A new government comes into office, and then you have a new program. So this is a new program with each new head of civil service?
Well, it's not new as per totally unheard of, but it is drawing from the ethics of the service and now developing those pillars, those objectives and activities that are measurable. Before, things were just said and there was no aspect of measurability to it. But now we have developed these KPIs. So the 4 pillars are: 1, to develop a civil service that has that EPIC culture; 2, to develop the enterprise content management system, and I'll still talk more on that; and 3, to develop a new attitude, an entrepreneurial spirit and commercial orientation in the service to be able to generate revenue, funds for government, not just being seen as a cost center to government. And then 4, to improve on the welfare of the civil servants, because really we cannot divorce that. Welfare, improving the quality of life of the civil servants definitely would help their productivity.
Okay, head of service, I know you touched on that at the opening remark, talking about the negativity, which is like a toga the civil service is wearing today. Most activities are said to have their own bottlenecks, especially with civil servants at the forefront. Programs, policies not being moved because civil servants will not let it move just ordinarily. Now, they say old habits die hard. How do you hope to checkmate that, really?
Well, you know, whatever are the issues, you have to understand that the government and the people of Nigeria need the civil service. And you need the civil service to move along with the policy and that program. A lot is being done in the service. Actually, a lot of things have been developed, a lot of things have been worked out. But you need to understand too that the civil servant needs working tools. There are a lot of challenges which I would not want to reel out here. But one of the issues that have come up quite a lot of times is the issue of indiscipline in the service. And that is what I am tackling very seriously now. Recently, we had posting instruction that was that was issued. And some officers, in that typical way they are used to, refused to go on posting. Immediately, I instructed, first of all, their salaries should be stopped by IPIS and then commence disciplinary procedure against them. Because for so long, it's like the civil service or the leadership of the civil service is a toothless bulldog, so people do just whatever they like. Another thing I'm also instilling now is I've told my permanent secretaries, you have to follow due process in carrying out disciplinary matters. Because when there are lapses here and there, the culprits can quickly run to the court of law and get redress, whether or not he deserves it or she deserves it. So these are things that definitely you'll see that change we're all talking about definitely must start with us, the civil servants.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's return again to the fuller meaning of the epic culture that you're seeking to instill, which is efficiency, productivity, incorruptibility, and citizen-centeredness. Productivity, what is it that is being introduced at this time to ensure that civil servants, you are supposed to work from 8 to 4 or 9 to 5, actually put in those hours and the hours are productive?
In tackling the issue of productivity, we are developing, in fact, we have already developed the performance management system. And this system is different from the APA that we were using, the Annual Performance Evaluation Report. Because now, under the performance management system, you are given a task based on your schedule of duty, and it's in line with the mandate of your office or the duties of your department. And you are given training, because if you want somebody to perform well, the person has to be well trained. So we are working on structured training, structured mandatory training for civil servants. One is training that is universal training to understand how the service works, and that is what we're doing now with the new inductees. This is something that was abandoned several years ago, but we have now reintroduced induction training for the new staff coming in. And then that is on the general training. Then in your profession, because we have different professionals in the service, you're also having training in line with your profession. And that is why we have reintroduced the annual budget, the annual training defense. This way, directors of human resources in all the MDAs have now been directed to send in their training program to the Office of the Head of Service. And they will now sit down with the Permanent Secretary Career Management Office and the officers of the Learning and Development Office to go through the training and what is going to be expected or achievable from the training, and for the cost that it's being, for cost efficiency. Now, when we have all this in place, you can now assess an officer. You can make a fair assessment of him or her, that what he is providing, the service he's providing, matches the investment that has been placed on that officer within that MDA. So productivity is being assessed by how much the officer has brought into the office in terms of his work output, based on whatever input he has received.
Well, thanks, Blessing. Just before we move on to the other aspect, I wanted to speak briefly to training as part of the efforts in boosting productivity. I'm sure you're aware of this, that oftentimes training programs are usually intended to provide welfare for the officers, not that was just collect the allowances and go sit at home. How will you overcome that?
Yes, you said old habits die hard. True, in the past, it was like training was seen as a welfare package. Somebody has some personal domestic issue, he runs to his boss, he put down something, he has this, But this has to stop. Training budgets must be used properly, must be accounted for, and the impact must be felt. And this is what we are speaking with the unions, that training shouldn't just be seen as a feel-good kind of thing. It is something that must bring value to the table. So these are points that we are addressing, and that's why the annual training defense is very, very important, because after that we will still have an audit of the training that the MDA has carried out and what is the impact of it. And there's something that we've reintroduced, and that is when an officer goes on a training program, he must come back and give a report of what he has benefited from that program and how he's planning to apply it to his work schedule. When officers know that they have to come and give an intelligent report on how that training is going to benefit himself and his work environment, they will definitely sit up.
Okay, Head of Service, let's take a look, and still in the line with training and some other opportunities that will better the lot of the civil service. Now, modern governments, of course, are looking towards e-governance and all that is attendant with ICT. How is today's civil servant actually posed, especially moving back from the old order, like we've said? What efforts have been channeled to actually improve that which is on ICT with e-governance today?
Yes, we definitely have to move with the times. The world has become a global village, is the cliche. The second pillar I mentioned to you is the enterprise content management system. Here, we are introducing an electronic method of carrying out all of government's business. We have started it in the service with the IPIS, the Integrated Personnel and Payroll Information System, which even as at now is not complete, it's just hanging on one leg. The HR module has not even gone on. And we've also introduced the Treasury Single Accounts, which is operating the Government Integrated Financial Management Information System, GIFMIS. So it started really, but then of course, like most things in government or in administration, the concentration is always on the financials. So everybody wants to get their financial reports on an electronic or an automated system. But we need to train the people who are even producing these reports. And that's what, unfortunately, so many people in the past have ignored. There's need for the capacity of the civil servants who are going to prepare these automated reports to be enhanced in terms of ICT knowledge. And that's why that second module, the second pillar I mentioned, is looking at the capacity development of the civil servant in a knowledge-based environment. Also looking at the development of our records, or should I say the conversion of our manual records to an electronic system, because it helps data collection, it helps as a reservoir of knowledge, of quick retrieval, it helps for efficiency, it helps to control all kinds of changes. You have people who keep changing their date of birth when they are getting towards retirement, they quickly change date of birth. Once these things are put in the system, it is not easily available for change, because, of course, there will be controls.
How does this explain the continuing phenomenon of ghost workers? It's a subject matter we have dealt with here, and there have been comments that the IPPIS has been compromised, particularly by federal civil servants.
Yes, there's a lot of investigation going on right now. And I will tell you, the IPPIS is a very good system. There is, of course, collusion. This is what it is. The operators are those who have been colluding in one way or the other. Now, what is going on, there's a lot of investigation going on. I wouldn't go into the details here. And quite a number of culprits have been picked up and are answering questions with the EFCC. The IPIS, what we need to do now to get the IPIS to be really functioning and foolproof is to work on the HR module, the HR platform of IPIS, because right now it's hanging on one leg. Before you get any information of a civil servant onto the IPIS, it must be generated from the human resources. Right now, that is not what is happening because that human resource aspect has not been developed.
When will this be developed?
We are working on it now. We have written. Thankfully, we've got funds now. It has been, well, it's been approved for us to develop that. And we've started with the verification exercise in the Office of Head of Service. I'm sure you're aware that we started with the directorate level staff, that is from level 15 to 17, because it is, once this payroll IPIS is cleaned up, it is what is now developed, brought from Office of Head of Service that will be the basis for whatever is being entered onto that platform. The way it is operating now, it's not foolproof, but we have detected the lapses.
All right. I just want to bless him. Yes, just one other aspect that the head of service talked about had to do, it seems, to one of the pillars. That you talked about the entrepreneurial and commercial spirit. What does this mean? Are you introducing the private sector tactics and strategies into public service governance?
Yes, it's very important that I explain that pillar because some people have become a bit worried. Some people have raised the issue that, well, is this not going to be in conflict with the core civil service? It is not the civil servant per se who is doing this entrepreneurial and commercial orientation for his pocket. No, what we are saying is that for so long, the civil service has just been seen as a cost center, just a drain for government. That's why in the past, of course, not this present administration, but some past administrations, as soon as they came in, the first thing they thought of saving costs was to cut down on the service. But thank God, this present administration, under His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, is not thinking in that direction at all, but rather is thinking of how to improve the service. Now, the entrepreneurial culture and commercial orientation goes this way. Each MDA, you look at your mandate. What have you been set up to do for government? And how can, based on that mandate you have, how can you develop areas from which revenue can be generated for government? For example, the Office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation, we are mainly into career management, training, and improvement, capacity development. We could, through our MDIs, we have MDIs like the Public Service Institute of Nigeria, as Administrative Staff College of Nigeria. We have 6 federal training centers all over Nigeria. We could develop the programs in these MDIs. The way we hear about Harvard Business School, people travel all the way there because it has become a state-of-the-art knowledge-based institution. We develop ours so that it's not just available to the civil service, it's also available to those in the wider public service into the private sector. It's available to people, academicians, students in higher institutions, and so on. And we get funds, we get money into the system for this, which of course part would of course be put into the TSA, into the treasury. You understand? Instead of always having to go cap in hand every year, you know, for funds for appropriation and all that. This is one area we are looking at. Another area is, I was in the Science and Tech Ministry, and I saw that we are doing so much research work, but people don't know about it. These things could be commercialized so that people who want to do advanced research in different areas, you could go to the Shedder Science and Technology Complex, which is a state-of-the-art science complex that is just lying there, just lying there, really. And they have the facilities. They have the irradiation facility that could help in storing crops, seeds, so as this would help, you know, stop post-harvest losses and so on. And it's just there. Many people in the agri sector are not aware. So this is what we're saying, that MDAs look and see within your setup, your mandate, what can you do that would generate more revenue into the government purse? And to encourage the civil servants in those MDAs, because the feeling is, what's in it for me? I mean, if I do all this, it goes to government anyway. No, we will have these innovation contests on a quarterly basis. We pick 2 good innovations, and we also compensate the designers of those innovations. All these are ideas to get people thinking, put on their thinking caps. There are a lot of civil servants, contrary to what people think. There are a lot of very intelligent, brilliant civil servants. In fact, many of the consultants who come to do one thing or the other in the ministries, they find that they have a very strong competition from the professionals in the ministries. Yes, so we have people who have the potential, but they need to be encouraged.
Looking at forms of encouraging civil servants to put in their best, at least for maximum benefits. Let's take a look at aspects of welfare. Today's civil servants with a low pay, let me use this word, or even feel we're having some very good pay. The economic recession and some other forms of economic problems are not actually helping. It makes no nonsense of what we have as take-home pay. It can't even take most people home again. What is the government doing in that direction, or what's the civil service doing in that direction to actually help post that with the civil servant to take home?
Yes, you know, like I said at the beginning of the program, the civil servant is living in Nigeria, so he's going to the same market. But at this particular point in time, the issue of increasing salaries, like we all know, it's not a very realistic proposition. But that's not to say that this administration does not feel the pain of the civil servant. And that's why we're looking at areas like improving the transportation system for civil servants. With the coming up of the rail system and the speed with which Mr. President is working very hard to get this functional. Even the Abuja mass rail will soon come on board, and will have transport fares drop for civil servants. That's one aspect. The second aspect is the high cost of rent, the high rentals. Rent is so out of this world in Abuja. And you find many civil servants have to live very far away. Some are even living in Kefi and in Nasarawa State and in Niger State and so on. And they keep coming to work, and it's not easy. So we are looking at the FISH program. That's how the Federal Integrated Staff Housing Program developed. We believe that with that program, at least we will be able to have affordable accommodation within the township areas, and this will definitely help civil servants.
Okay. Mrs. Winifredo Yoita, the housing issue will be on after the break because that is part of the core of our discussion this morning. What exactly is going to be happening for the civil servants in terms of housing? This is Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a break at this point to bring some messages and it will be time to be joined by other guests alongside the head of civil service to look into that program, FISH.
Are you okay, sir?
Come and join me, have some drinks. I am Professor John Bull's younger brother.
They were drinking and drinking. Later, they started laughing and laughing and laughing.
And you kept on serving and serving and serving.
Is that not my job?
Oh, dear.
This week on your award-winning comedy series, Professor John Bull, starring Kanayo Okanayo, Mercy Johnson, Queen Wokoye, Funky Malam, Oguz Baba, Yomi Fash Lanso, MC for God, Stephen Odingbe, Junior Pope.
I am perfectly okay. Boniface, you don't look tired. You look dead.
Professor John Bull, fasten your seatbelts this Tuesday and Friday, 8:30 to 9 p.m. on NTA Network, International, and Star Times. It's absolutely bombastic.
Over and out. The largest data network, Glow, Grandmasters of Data.
Our latest edition of TV Guide is out. This edition of your favorite magazine will simply blow your mind. The package is loaded and our offering is quite illuminating. NTA has a new Director General, Yakubu Ibn Muhammad, a tested and trusted professional, an old wine that keeps getting better with age. This is the new driver of the digital switch over train. Get to know him more in TV Guide. And now, on our cover is one of Nigeria's most finest comic actors, Afiz Oyetoro, aka Saka. Peep into his world and you will see how he is putting from glory to glory. The change agenda of President Muhammadu Buhari, we did an assessment so far. All our refreshing columns and incisive features are a collector's item and research material. TV Guide, available on your newsstands and in all NTA stations nationwide. Also in our embassies in United Kingdom, USA, China, Ghana and Egypt. TV Guide, grab a copy and give one to a friend. TV Guide, still your indispensable companion.
We intend to radically change Newman Street. My company has a track record of converting slums into new cities. Many years of experience has taught us to fish out allies within the communities we want to transform.
Don't listen to your husband. Listen to me. Give me a boy. And the two of you may never even have to work again.
Sharp guy, how about you? What's your name?
Akpos. America.
Oh, Akpos America.
One. Love it too.
Wonderful wonder. Wonderful wonder.
Wonderful.
If you just tuned in, the program is Good Morning Nigeria, and we still have our guest seated, but very soon you'll get to meet other guests that have joined us in the studio. For your tweets that have come in, we'll quickly read through them and let's get to see what Nigerians are saying. Okay, at least for the head of civil service to respond to some of those areas that she touched on earlier. From Marcel at Zanzarika 1976, that's the Twitter handle. Said, as the present political structure exists, where politics is the highest paid job, with bogus pecs, free and fair election will always be an illusion. Well, I don't know how that one concerns her. Okay.
Well, Tefa Hemen has this tweet. It says, lateness to work is still pervasive in most government agencies. What are you doing about this, ma'am?
And from Okara Stephen, he said, good morning. What will the head of civil service do to check the trend of same people going for training more than 10 times.
All right. So you have this one also from Razak Adeola Shitu. It's what about people collecting money before being given employment in the civil service? What have you done about it? So those are some of the questions on the first segment of our discussion this morning. We still have with us the head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Mrs. Winifred Oyoita. I would like you to respond to these issues. One has to do with discipline, and then the extortion as well as pervasive lateness in the civil service.
Okay. First of all, the issue of pervasive lateness, I have instructed my permanent secretaries to keep registers, attendance registers, and those attendance registers would be inspected at any time. But they themselves, being the very people at the spot, should be able to carry out the spot checks and so on. I have done this a few times, and to encourage the civil servants to come in early, actually, I now used a system of those who were actually on seat were encouraged by, being given some recognition and some awards. Now, the disciplinary aspect is what I had mentioned earlier, that we have gone back to instilling discipline. But a lot too depends on the senior officers not to cover up, because where you cover up, then people escape discipline. Then the issue of training, that the same people are going for training, these are all things that we are addressing with the new system of the training defense. Because when you come in as a director of HR, you're coming with your training program, you will still come back and an audit would be carried out of who actually went on this training. And we will be able to detect from the records that the directors HR are meant to be keeping henceforth, those who keep going on repeats and trainings or training like that. Then this issue of money for job is a very big scam. In fact, can you believe they have opened about the scammers, have opened about 5 different Facebook pages or accounts using my name, using my photograph, and so many people have been falling for it. They are asking people to bring huge sums of money to be given appointments. Nobody collects money. Anybody who tells any Nigerian that he must bring money before he gets a job is a thief, a dupe, a 419, and should be reported. Unfortunately, there are insiders who are perpetrating this fraud, and we are already on them. Right now, some of them are with the SARS, and others are with the EFCC. We are breaking into the syndicate gradually. But because it is something that is so entrenched even within the system, we have to use a lot of intelligence agencies to get to them. But we will get them.
All right, Head of Service, thank you very much. Now, we're moving into the second segment of our discussion, dealing properly with FISH, which is the Federal Integrated Staff Housing Program. We have 2 other guests who are now joining the Head of Service of the Federation. Listen.
Yes, joining us for this second part of the conversation, we have Mr. Charles Ajiva. He's the Executive Director, Loans and Mortgage Services, Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. We'd like to welcome you to the program, Sir Ajiva.
Thank you.
Also with us of course, we just have the guest in the Abuja studio. We have Mr. Emmanuel Obire. He's a private developer. Mr. Obire, thank you for joining us on the program this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Okay. All right,
before we bring in the other guests who just joined us now, the Head of Service was earlier, before we went on the break, trying to explain the background to FISH. So maybe we'll return to you so that we have a better elaboration on what the Federal Integrated Staff Housing Program is all about.
The Federal Integrated Staff Housing Program, with the acronym FISH, is a program that has been developed by my administration to provide affordable houses for civil servants. And this program is different because it is an interactive program, interministerial program. It brings in the capacities of various relevant MDAs working with the Office of the Head of Civil Service of the Federation, like the Federal Ministry of Works, Power and Housing, Water Resources, the Federal Housing Authority, the Ministry of FCT, Federal Capital Territory, and so on. And we are also working with financial organizations like the Federal Mortgage Bank, PENCOM, and private developers to work up, to develop a PPP arrangement.
Okay, let's take a look at the program structure now. It's meant for civil servants. And we know there have been different programs actually which were supposedly to be for civil servants, but some other people kind of hijacked it. What is the guarantee that this is strictly going to be for civil servants? What are you going to be doing?
Well, what we've done, because we know that these things have happened in the past, but this time around it will not be so. The fish program has developed a special purpose vehicle, and that is the Fish Cooperative. So to get into the program, you only have to pay just 1,000 naira, nothing more than that, to register with that Fish Cooperative. And you're paying, you must be introduced by your Director, Human Resources, and that form will also be endorsed by your Permanent Secretary. So this way, we are sure that we are getting only genuine civil servants onto the platform.
All right, thank you. Now let's get the comments now of Mr. Unyo Ajiva, Executive Director, Loans and Mortgage Services of Federal Mortgage Bank. A couple of years ago, we had some other programs, some 100,000 or so housing mortgage houses. I'm not sure where that stands in the meantime, because civil servants were also at the time indicated as the frontline beneficiaries of that earlier program. Is there any relationship between that earlier program and fish?
There is no direct relationship between the earlier program and fish. The earlier program, of course, is still on course, but slowed down because of funding. The earlier arrangement was had to do with NSC and the federal government, with the expectation that CBN will provide substantial part of the funding for the housing. Incidentally, that arrangement was not finalized, and the Federal Mortgage Bank, in the interim, to launch the program, was asked to undertake some units, which actually we put down some money, and the developer started construction. But because the substantial part of the funding, which was expected to come from the central bank, did not materialize, that project is still, it's on hold, but it's not been actually terminated to the best of, our knowledge.
What's your role now in fish?
We, under the mandate given to us under our act, we administer National Housing Fund, and that is the fund that all Nigerian workers contribute to. So under that fund, we are mandated, or we have the responsibility to provide mortgages for workers who are contributors and interested in purchasing houses. And under the fish program, which is for workers essentially, and they are all contributors to that National Housing Fund, because those houses are actually going to be sold to them. It's not a gift. So we will finance the mortgages for the workers, in which case they will now pay the loan over a period of time, and that would provide the fish program additional money to consider to continue to produce the houses, because the houses indeed are going to be in phases. As the construction is completed, mortgages are packaged for the workers in that phase, will provide the fund back into the scheme to continue further production. So, so really our responsibility is to provide mortgages for the workers who will key into that program.
Okay, Mr. Jewel, still with you, because we know over time, at least I know since I became a worker for the government, I've had my deductions been made for National Housing Fund and some other forms. But for most people too, the same poor data collection or poor data being given in terms of whatever they've contributed over the years. How do such people come back to believe in what mortgage that they're going to be getting as support now? What happens to those initial contribution?
All the contributions of the workers, is still there. In fact, it's out of the contribution that we finance mortgages. And in fact, we are working on our database to ensure that we, clean it up and enable workers to be able to assess their contributions at any point in time, to know what they have contributed.
So can you use that to fall back on the FISH program?
So exactly that's what we are saying, that is a fund that we're using to finance the mortgages for the workers under the FISH program.
What would be the tenor of the mortgages?
The mortgages we finance depend on the number of years the worker has in service, because we expect the mortgages to terminate during the period of your service. So, for example, if you have 5 years to the end of your service year, then the mortgage will be for 5 years. Some can have as high as 25 years, even 30 years, depending on when you assess the mortgage.
Okay, all right, fine. But just to, before we bring in the private developer who was introduced earlier, Mr. Emmanuel Obire, we'd like the head of civil service to respond to this, because while the executive director of the Mortgage Bank was speaking, he did say that the houses will be built. So 2 questions: who will build, and where will the houses be built? Only in Abuja or elsewhere? And when will the construction begin?
Okay, the provision of the houses is on 3 fronts. One, we can get the land available, like what we've done now with the Ministry of FCT. They are working, the minister has so very well kindly assured us that they are working to get us land for the FISH program, which will now be available for developers who want to be a part of the program, or funding, direct funding provision by the FISH to provide houses. That is one. Secondly, the developers who already have available houses. That we've seen that in Lagos State, because Lagos State has also keyed in very well into the program. And then thirdly, the houses that could now be built by civil servants themselves based on the plots available and the prototype designs. So these are the 3 various options that we have for provision of the houses. Then we also talked about, you mentioned who and whether it's only in Abuja. No, it's not only in Abuja, although of course we've started with Abuja. We've also approached a few state governments. Some have even called us, like Lagos State. Lagos State is very interested, and His Excellency Governor Ambode has already put up a technical committee working, and they've even shown us some of the houses they have available. There's something you asked my colleague here about the tenure, yes, of the mortgage. We have the Federal Government Staff Housing Loans Board, which is also part of the FISH Planning Implementation Committee, and the FHA too is part of that. Now, there's a profiling system that has been developed to be able to get the profile of possible off-takers for this facility. And that profiling system is very interesting, because you could find from that profile that an off-taker, that's a civil servant who may be on level 9 and still has about, let's say, 25 years more in service, based on what he's earning now and scientific computations, you may find that he can even get a loan, a mortgage of much higher than a level 17 who is earning quite well now, but is retiring in the next maybe 3 or 4 years. So the question that initially civil servants were worried that how would I'm just a small officer, I'm just on level 8, I'm just on level 10 or something. How am I going to get this kind of house? From that scientific profiling that has been developed by the Federal Housing Authority, you'll find that even those who are having more years are more likely to get a better deal than those who have just 2 or 3 years left.
Okay, I'm sure the next question, any average civil servants watching now will say, how much with some of this, and what prototype, like you've already indicated, 2, 3, or whatever number of bedrooms, and how much, so they'll know what to look out for.
Yes, what makes cost of housing so high is the cost of the land, then of course the infrastructure that is being developed there, being done by private companies, private individuals, and so on. So what's going to make the houses on the fish program attractive is that the land will be obtained with title at a much reduced cost, because we're dealing directly with the government. In the case of Abuja, we'll be dealing directly with the MFCT. In Lagos, we're dealing directly with the Lagos State government. We are not going through third parties. And then the infrastructure that's going to be developed in those areas, we're using government MDAs that are in that field. That's why it's an interministerial program. We are working with the Federal Ministry of Power Works and Housing. Even the one that at the groundbreaking recently, they provided the link roads and so on. So we'll be working with government professionals in government service and not private people. And then there's also what the Federal Mortgage Bank, we had some discussion with them, and that is they are also planning to bring in estate developers, special estate developers facility or loan for the estate developers who want to work with us on the fish program. And these will be low interest rates. And before I quickly round up, there's the foreign aspect. Already some international agencies like the Shelter Afrique and the China Development Fund have indicated interest in bringing in funds for us at a very low price. Yes, low cost.
All right, thank you very much. This is time for us to now bring in Mr. Emmanuel Obire, a private developer. You've listened to the explanations by the other two guests with respect to the fish program. As a private developer, are you enthusiastic about fish?
Yes, there's a lot of enthusiasm on our part, because one of the key things which is very important to the private developer is the aspect of offtake. Once you have, like every commodity that is put in the market, I mean, the house is also, for us, seen as a commodity that, is not built to be kept in the shelf. One of the greatest challenges that the estate developers have had over the years has been the aspect of offloading the properties they develop. And so once there's an exit, which the fish program is providing, it makes it quite easy for us to access the necessary funding and roll out the necessary the housing stock that will be required.
Well, some private developers, particularly we know them here in the Federal Capital Territory, have been notorious for not fulfilling the terms of contract with respect, for instance, to the provision of infrastructure. What will be different this time around?
Like Madam has said, One very, very important aspect is that of collaboration. Under the FISH program, it's been worked out end-to-end where there's going to be active collaboration between the private and the public sector. As long as every party plays its own part, we will have a holistic development where the infrastructure is being provided by the public sector and the private sector is providing the houses. And so we'll have a proper, well knit out development.
Okay, Mr. Biro, of course, and Head of Civil Service and Mr. Ajifia, we'll come back to you to continue the discussion, but some other tweets have come in. Let's hear from Nigerians what they think of our discussion this morning. From Kachala Mala, said, not possible for civil servants to earn a house in Nigerian administration bottlenecks is the key to underdevelopment in that area. And also from Mike Ayakwo, he says, federal government of Nigeria should fast-track the housing scheme. The Nigerian workers are suffering greatly for inadequate houses.
And then we have this from Chinazo, tweets. I appreciate the good intentions of the leadership of the civil service in trying to reorientate the civil servants. However, there are also looming issues that make workers to seek dubious means of making quick money.
Abdullahi Olusabi, majority of civil servants are contributors to Federal Mortgage Bank, but over 98% have never benefited. Why?
Amadiego Obina, head of service. A lot of ghost workers are in the civil service. Indiscipline and lack of commitment by civil servants are rife.
And Global Time News, dear Madam Head of Service, good programs and policy, but what is the mechanism that you're putting in to check civil service culture of corruption?
And Chinazo again tweets, so one major problem is retirement benefits. Now there are currently retirees who have not been paid for the past 11 months. That's almost a year.
From Sani Michael Omakoji, says we want to see the sincerity of governments come to play in this agitation because many civil servants are living in slums, especially Mandela in Abuja.
And Shegun Aremo tweets, please, what's the head of service doing about areas of promotion or delayed promotion and also irregular recruitment?
The scheme was since launched by President Muhammadu Buhari by the first week of August. What has been the progress report thus far?
And Ferdinand, we have this tweet from him. It says, please, when will the Office of the Head of the Civil Service start paying pensioners and contractors? Good programs and policy, but lots of corruption among the civil servants.
Ahmad Diego Obina says it is the time the truth must be told. Civil servants are the assets of any government, and the government has a responsibility to cater for them.
All right, those are some of the tweets that we have. In the meantime, we'd like the head of service to respond to the issues that have been raised with regard to matters you spoke about earlier, indiscipline, corruption, as well as non-payment of retirement benefits.
Okay, I'll start with the issue of non-payment of retirement benefits. I believe that right now, with the new, well, it's not so new anymore, the Pension Act 2014 amended. What has been happening now is people are actually getting paid more frequently than in the past, and records are being kept. But of course, in every situation where there is a lapse or where there's a bad egg somewhere, that is the situation that is always brought out. But of course, I am not trying to hide under that. Right now, I've set up a tripartite committee, and it's a standing committee. They are working continuously, headed by my office with the PENCOM and PTAD, that's the Pension Transition Administration Department. And all issues of pension matters that is lagging behind, being delayed, goes to this committee at once. Instead of moving from one office to another office to another office, it just goes, or everything just goes straight to that sitting committee, and they do the work there and then. If it's a PENCOM matter, if it's PTAD, or if it's from head of service, it's immediately sorted out. And that is why we were able to very recently get some of our retired senior officers a good number of them, I think about 12 of them out of 14, were immediately were paid their pensions arrears very recently because of that standing committee that's working day and night on this matter. You know, there have been backlog of issues, but we are really addressing it, and this is just one of the good news that we have. Then the issue of corruption in the system, we have talked about that at length, and I've already told you that a lot of investigation is going on right now, and some of the culprits have run away from the office. They don't even show up anymore. So those ones are being trailed by the SARS and the SSS. Now, the issue of somebody said the scheme was launched on 1st of August, and so what has happened? There is a lot of progress. There is a lot of progress, but of course, it's not something that we have to be coming to the newspaper every day and saying, this is what we've done, this is what we've done, and so on. But I can tell you that we've started the profiling. We started the off-taker profiling. Around about 6,000 civil servants have already registered with the Fish Cooperative, and the profiling is going on. The Federal Government Staff Housing Loans Board, they are part of this. They are, of course, one of our agencies in the Office of Head of Civil Service of the Federation, and they are going to pick the first set. Remember, 30 civil servants won tickets, raffle draw. So they are the first set that will be given the opportunity, and then others. So we are working on it, and once those first sets collect their loans, it will be duly announced and publicized. Okay, but we are really on the program.
On delayed promotions.
Yes, that too, you know, we started when His Excellency came into government last year. We had a committee that sat, and that committee was chaired by the head of service of the Federation, and we came up with all the arrears of staff promotion arrears, first 28 days, various repatriation, staff claims, actually. And it totaled about 293 billion naira, which you know that it's quite a huge sum, especially in these times. But His Excellency, because of the kindness of heart he had, he approved that this sum should be paid. And we are working hand in hand with the Honorable Minister of Finance, Mrs. Adeosun. And what we're doing, because the sum of money is too huge to come out at this time, we have now split it, and the first tranche is going to be paid this month, because at the last cash management meeting, it was processed. So I want to assure civil servants that they are going to start getting their arrears gradually. It's going to be a gradual process, and it will be based on in chronological, you know, based on age of the claims.
Okay. All right, Chair of Civil Service, let's take a look at, before we come to the other guest now. We talked about the first aspect of this program been taken off already in first week of August. Now, what about the other states? You made mention of Lagos State earlier. Will you be doing this simultaneously across the nation, or we have to go off first with this Abuja phase before we start getting to the other states of the Federation? At least to encourage other federal civil servants who are residents in those other states.
In fact, it's like Lagos State even wants to beat us to it. They are very ready, and some of the beneficiaries of the fish program would also get houses in Lagos State, because we have inspected the houses that are ready in different districts in Lagos State. Some other state governments too have indicated interest, like Bauchi has indicated, Cross River, Akwa Ibom, and yes, I think those, and Kaduna, yes, Kaduna State, they've indicated interest. But you know, these are decisions that is not, the governor may have the good interest, good mind, but he has to bring it to his council, you know, for further deliberation. So it will continue in other states of the federation.
Do you foresee any challenge in the scheme, and how ready are you to actually summon some of those ones?
In every situation in life, there are challenges, definitely.
What is your greatest fear?
Well, my greatest fear about the scheme is the fear of this, what happens in Nigeria, lack of continuity. I would really want to see that subsequent administrations move with the vision. Right now, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari has housing as one of his key priority areas for development, because we know what any housing development brings to a nation. It creates jobs, it has a trickle-down effect in the economy. The little caterers come to the building site, they are able to sell, they have some money for their children. The builders, artisans, skilled workers, professionals, and of course, those who supply the building materials, there's a lot of ripple effect in the economy. So housing programs are always one of those areas in any recession that a government must look into. But we believe that subsequently, it will not just end now with Mrs. Oyoita, it will continue, because it is something that will bring a lot of development, a lot of peace and progress to this country.
Okay, there was a tweet from Abdullahi Onishabi. We would like the Executive Director of Federal Mortgage Bank to respond to this. It says a majority of civil servants are contributors to the Federal Mortgage Bank, but according to the tweet, 98% have never benefited. Why?
Let me first start by saying that the contribution to National Housing Fund is not a tax, it's not a levy. It's actually a saving for the workers, because at the time you retire, you are entitled to a refund of your contributions with an interest. And then secondly, like I did say before, Federal Mortgage Bank provides mortgages, but the contributors must secure a property and approach a primary mortgage bank for mortgage. Because actually Federal Mortgage Bank is a secondary mortgage institution. We do not, grant the mortgage directly to retail beneficiaries. They go through the primary mortgage bank. They collect the applications and forward to us to refinance in bulk. So the contributor must actually secure a house and approach a primary mortgage bank for National Housing Fund mortgage loan. Because if you do not do that, there's no way you can access. And I speak, we have already approved, as I did, over 100 billion approval, 100 billion naira approvals have been made for mortgages. We already disbursed up to 64 billion to over 16,000 beneficiaries. The others, disbursement has not been made because they have not, either the primary mortgage bank has not met the conditions precedent, or the beneficiary has not fulfilled some of the conditions. So we are actually granting mortgages, but you have to apply following the the normal process and procedure.
Just before we take the latest set of tweets that we have, we would like Mr. Emmanuel Obire to give an indication. What are the likely cost factors for the houses? With the houses that, assuming you are tipped as one of the developers, will the houses truly be affordable by civil servants, a chap on level 8 or 9?
Truly, I mean, it's possible to have affordable housing we're actually looking at the price band of between 2.5 and 10 million naira. It could actually be lower than 2.5. It's
in what location?
In different locations, Lagos, Abuja. Like earlier said by the head of service, the key challenge had been the aspect of the land. But even the land cost will pale into insignificance if the schemes are done on a very large scale. And so what we are looking at as part of our own contribution is to provide schemes in 500, thousands, 2,000. So if you have them on a large scale, the price comes down. So that's basically what we're looking at. And we're talking about 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units.
Okay. Well, at 2.5, I'm sure a whole lot will jump, or certainly maybe not in Abuja.
It's possible to do that in Abuja.
In Abuja?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think it is a blessing. Let's perhaps not get overly optimistic, because they said the government will provide land. We know the city obviously has been virtually allocated phase 1, phase 2, perhaps phase 3. So if you are on the outskirts of the city, that will still be land allocated by government. Head of service. In Lagos, you couldn't possibly get this in Ikoyi, for instance.
No, you couldn't. But then there are lots of new districts opening up in Lagos, and with the new bridge that they're building that will now connect Ekpe and so on to the other parts of Lagos, you find that those areas that were far away may become quite close. Then talking about FCT, actually there are a lot of plots or areas that have been allocated to developers in choice districts, which nothing has happened. So we are looking at appealing, of course it's an appeal to the minister, that if these allocations have been made for all these years, the developers are not showing any seriousness, then hand it over to Fish, because it is for the Nigerian worker. And I believe we will be favorably considered there.
Okay, let's quickly read tweets before we go. It's the last stretch of the program. Sani Michael Omakaje, we have witnessed in the past whereby a house meant for a director is allocated to a clerk because of nepotism.
Well, we have this from Jetta94, that is the Twitter handle. The Federal Loans Board started housing program before Fish. It never succeeded. What is the guarantee that Fish will succeed?
Timely topics, because I've been thinking on how to pay my rent. Mortgage should be revived. Government, private, and banks should fully get involved. From that to Obika Ochena.
All right. So those are the tweets that we would like the head of service to respond to. Fish. Before Fish, there was a Federal Loans Board that started the housing program. Is that correct?
There is a Federal Government Staff Housing Loans Board, headed by an executive secretary, Dr. Mrs. Fika. And it's still very much in existence. In fact, that loans board has existed right from the early 20th century. Now, the issue to say that it is no longer in existence is very incorrect. It is an agency of the Office of Head of Civil Service of the Federation, and its mandate is to provide soft loans for those in the public sector, and it has been doing a very good job, really. The challenge that the Federal Government Staff Housing Loans Board is facing is the challenge of every situation in the country, that's paucity of funds. And that is why we are looking outwards now. We've been having engagements with the Chinese Development Fund. They came here recently during the last housing summit, and we had very useful discussions. Also, we've engaged with the Shelter Afrique, and at the recent Africa Pension Summit, one of the things that came up from that summit is that other countries in the world, especially Africa, like Kenya, for example, have been using pension funds to invest in housing facilities for their civil servants. So these are things we're all weighing various options. The Federal Government Staff Housing Loans Board has been working very hard. Why some civil servants feel dissatisfied is through no fault of ours, of the Federal Government Staff Housing Loans Board. It's because there just isn't enough money to go around all the requests for loan. Yes, but we are trying hard.
All right. On that note, we would like to thank all our guests who have been with us at the discussion segment this morning. First, we'd like to appreciate Mr. Emmanuel Obire. He's a private developer. Mr. Emmanuel Obire, thank you for your contribution.
Thank you very much.
I also would like to appreciate Mr. Charles Nuyo Ajiva, Executive Director of the Loans and Mortgage Services of the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. Thank you for your contribution to our discussion. And especially also would like to appreciate Mrs. Winifred Oyoita, Head of the Civil Service of the Federation. Thank you for your insights and for your time.
Thank you very much.
All right, it's still Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take our complimentary segments now, and it's on to sports. Super Eagles of Nigeria beat MPFL side Plateau United in a friendly as preparations continue ahead of their World Cup qualifier against Zambia. We join our sports desk for the details.